Let me introduce you down this roadway to one of the most spectacular properties I've seen in my 35-year career. 267-acre parcel with a private lake, custom built, approximately 6,000 square foot, 6-bedroom, 5-washroom home, energy efficient, all ground source heating, one of the most energy efficient homes you'll find in Canada, I believe, with 2 large shops, 30 feet by 40 feet, as well as a studio, 13 by 13. So I'd just like to introduce the homeowner, Dave and Fran Hatherton. Dave is a legend in geothermal heating and has been in the business for 40 years, and you're going to find out how he's used that expertise to make this a very special property.
I'd always lived in the country and didn't want anything where there was neighbors. There was 167 acres at that time.
And I bought it on the spot. Fran hadn't even seen it. So bought another 100 acres. It's 267 acres now. The lakes, I think, is about 25. It's 20 feet deep in the middle. And I'd say it averages off the end of this dock, it's about 10 to 12 feet once you get the big floating dock out.
This lake's 20 feet deep. It's really swimmable. The kids love it. We went over to Wayne's Lake, and we went over with coolers and a couple of canoes and filled up coolers with fish and brought them up and put them in the lake here. And now we have up to 5-pound bass in here. There's nervous frogs around the perimeter, but there's no leeches anymore. And now there's a cottage and a bunkie. So now we have 267 acres, and there's nobody within really a kilometer. And there really isn't any way to have another building within that distance. Yeah, the cottage here was just basically a 3-season cottage, and we decided to build something else. And we ended up with a very good architect, and Fran and him and our builder, Fry Building Contractors out of Hawksville, Ontario, started with pretty much a clean slate. There's granite everywhere here. I'm moving granite boulders around. I'm digging trenches with a backhoe. I'm pulling out huge granite boulders, moving them out of the way. And Fran's saying, you got all this granite here and we got to go buy stuff, and have it put in. But one of the main reasons I think we did granite here is why would you wouldn't bring in something else, because granite's what this place is. You called it the Canada. Like we hit Canada in the bottom. All the granite here is cut with saws. That was all cut with saws, that whole fireplace. And it's all granite.
They had a skid steer in here, the biggest skid steer you could get, and they couldn't lift that. We just said, what would you do if this was your place? And he got the plans, he figured everything out. I'd do this, and so we just let him do it. I think it fits the place about right. So
I like the way stuff's built. If you tore this place apart, it'd be like a Porsche. It's built. The bones of it are amazing. It's all of this is fir beams. We couldn't do a true post and beam because you can't get enough insulation in for my thing. So what we did is the best we could, and it looks exactly like post and beam. But there's our 50 in the ceiling and our 35 to 40 in the walls, all foamed. Everything's, and all of the shelving, which people may not notice, is solid maple. Everything's solid maple. There isn't a stick of drywall in this building. It's all poplar tongue and groove walls. Fire and motion throughout the building. All the doors got those switches on them. Works really well. Out here though, we've never had anybody out here. There's locals here, don't know this is here. There's good fire service here, but with a long lane, there is a mass tank there that has water in it. We leave about 1,500 gallons in it because I don't want more than that being dumped in here. But there's sprinkler heads everywhere. Each room has its own sprinkler. So if there was a fire in anybody's room and they were in there, they'd get wet, but they're not going to get cooked. Even the power could go out and you could have a fire in any room and it would put it out on just by itself. We put in floor heating in the basement. There's 6 inches of concrete, it's like 8 inches of concrete. It gets R20 in the floor. Then there's concrete walls that are sandwich wall construction, which is 4 inches on the outside, 4 inches of insulation, styrospan insulation, and 8 inches of concrete. It gives you a lot of mass. Once you get it warm, you're done. It doesn't take much to keep it there. With triple pane windows, there's triple pane everywhere we could put it that was available. We got it from Lowen. Everywhere in the building is in-floor. Even this hemlock flooring here. Underneath that, there's strapping put down. The pipe is laid, and then that's filled with concrete. Gypcrete on every floor other than the basement.
What we did is, starting with the foundation floor, the basement floor, and yeah, the whole basement floor. Like there isn't a zone in here that doesn't have in-floor heating. Not just the bathrooms. Part of the reason you do that is it's really comfortable. Concrete floor has got 8 inches of concrete and 3 inches of insulation, right? And then the piping is put in the concrete, suspended in the concrete. So what that does is once you get it warm, it stays warm. We take the heat out of the lake and put it in the house, actually in the floor or in the air. We can do both. But what we can do by doing that and designing the building the way it is for every 1 unit of energy you consume, you get 5. Your operating costs are like half of what gas would be out here. So, operating costs one thing, but I'm more into the environmental side of it too. This place doesn't have any emissions as far as carbon emissions. It uses electricity from the grid and can do it off peak, and you can have a net zero carbon home out here. It's really comfortable. It's all pre-set up to be able to retrofit to all kinds of different sources. And we walked into a place and it had this cut stone. And Fran says, I like that. You would. Like this. It's gold. Like every piece is cut and chipped by hand. As far as snow load, it's like 2x10s or 2x12s. And I think they're 12-inch centers. It's not going anywhere. For me, a lot of the cool stuff in here you can't see. Everybody, likes the architectural thing. It's fine, but that's not my bag. My bag is foundation stuff, what makes things work. And the well is 300 feet deep. It has I think it's probably 1.5 gallons, 2 gallons a minute, but it fills within 10 feet of the surface. So I put in what they call an SQE Grundfos variable inverter pump. I put that in with the pump shot probably 1.5 years ago. And what it does is there's really no pressure tank. You can just keep opening taps and it'll just maintain whatever pressure you set. It's this little thing down there. Right now it's set at 75 or 80 psi, and that's it. It also protects itself because if you did ever leave something wide open, it'll shut off because it won't keep running dry. There's also a spring that's up here, way up the side of that hill. It's tied into the system with valves. So if you're out of energy, or if you didn't have electricity, or if the genset wasn't, whatever happened, all you got to do is open up those valves and you end up with like 25, 30 psi from a spring up on the side of the hill up here.
You can then control, every area has a zone. Kitchen has a zone, this has a zone, every bathroom, every space has an in-floor zone that you can either control with a computer, remotely or on site. It's quite easy. It looks complicated. People get a little overwhelmed, but it's not. And you can also control it with a wall thermostat in each zone. For airside air conditioning, dehumidification, and heating and cooling. If somebody wants a certain temperature in their room for cooling, they just set it. What this is the, on the surface, it's just a floor plan graphic of the cottage, right? So you have the basement zone, the main floor, and the upper floor. First of all, you can be anywhere on the planet and get at this through a web browser.
I'm going to be coming up here and I want to be in the master bedroom, right? So you go like that and you say, what do you want it? I want it at 18 degrees or I want it at 22 degrees for cooling. That's it.
It's a big place, and you can heat and cool where you're going to be, and that's it. The rest of the place just sits. So then you're just heating the areas and cooling the areas that you're in. You know, I'm a carbon hound. I try not to use, I can't help it with airplanes yet, but I'm working on it. This place doesn't have any carbon emissions. Total energy bill here for lights, everything. The only thing we use on an ongoing basis that's not electric is the propane cooktop and the barbecue. The total energy bill here, I think, for everything is 13 grand a year. Heating, cooling, hot water, lights, everything. Like it's never below 15 degrees in here, anywhere. Which it's better for the building, especially with wood. You don't want those big changes. We don't have to run very high temperatures in the floor here to keep the thing warm, so it doesn't dry the wood out and make it move or anything. Nothing's moved here. So if you ran a fossil fuel system, you'd start having trouble with wood floors because they'll expand and contract a lot. We don't get a lot. We don't get any of that. We don't get any movement. I think this is a permanent place. This is kind of like stuff they did in Germany and Italy and Europe, you know, how they built things. You know, I had a buddy that was from England. His kitchen table was 700 years old. Canada wasn't even here, right? This thing, I think it's here for, I don't know how long it'll be here. It's permanent. There's no drywall, it's all wood, and it's all kept properly. It's never gonna rot. You know, so I don't know, I think it's permanent. We wanted something that wasn't disposable. So pretty much a net zero carbon building. You could put a big array of solar there and you could probably offset that electric bill. So you could basically pretty much take this place off grid. Like this place, this big a place with all the buildings. If you wanted to do it at any time in the future, you could take it off the grid. There's the heat pump that's used for heating and cooling the air, right? Has a thing, it's called a climate dry system. And what it can do is normally with an air conditioner, if you want to get it cool inside, get rid of the humidity, you got to get it really cold, right? Because you got to keep moving the air through it, and that means the coil's got to be cold, and it just keeps getting cooler, and you get chilled, right? Trying to get the humidity out. This thing actually maintains the air temperature in the room the same. It takes the humidity out. So you can set on the computer, you say, I want 50%, that's it. You never chill the building, but you maintain the humidity wherever you want it. The place has been designed to anticipate the future of things. In fact, there's pipes run around. There's even there's pipes that run to the septic system that if you wanted to, you could hook them up and take the heat out of the septic. If you have a shower, you only ever heat the water once, because you put the heat back in the tank every time you shower. That's all set up here. It's available to do that. I never hooked it up because it wasn't worth it yet. But the anticipation was that was something that was going to happen down the road, which I think it is. So we'll see. And another thing that's nice about these floors, if you want to just use a mop, just turn the floor heat up because it's dry. I do the same with the shops. If I pressure wash a shop, I just turn the infloor up quite a bit, leave it up at maybe even like 40 degrees, 45 degrees, 50 degrees, and then pressure wash the floor, and it's just dry. It's dry before you get from one side to the other. We built a 30 by 40 shop. Up top here, we put in same kind of insulation levels. I think there's R40 in the ceiling and R28 in the walls. In-floor heating, insulated floor, insulated foundation. There's a finished space upstairs that's all finished. It's all pine, and 2 bedrooms with a large hangout area, pool table. You can do whatever you want up there, I guess. And it's heated and cooled with a heat pump upstairs that's tied into the same system. The bottom shop is another 30 by 40 shop, but that's a workshop. That's It's got electrical vehicle plug-in. So does the top shop with, I think they're 40 amp chargers. So you get like 40 kilometers per hour. The bottom shop also has in-floor. It also has the same insulation levels, R30 and R40 in the ceiling, and the ceiling's 40, the bottom's, the walls are 30, and then the insulation, the floor itself is insulated and has in-floor heating with its own cooling system. You could cool it, but you don't need to down there. It's fine, it's nice and cool. And there's a mezzanine down there also that's a 10-foot ceiling below, and then there's a mezzanine up above for storage, shelving and stuff. And it's all finished in pine also. The bottom shop has 18-foot doors, two 18-foot doors on it, but they're big enough for a large motorhome. Part of the thought was you could have, if somebody wanted to put their motorhome inside, it'll fit right in. The bottom shop drops down probably 25 feet in elevation. Up behind that, there's probably 50 acres of sugar maples. It's just a total gravity feed right to the shop. If you're going to work from home, and if you like to be where it's quiet, doing it here, you can have your meeting, you can get your cell phone, go for a walk. You can't have a more private office than a box in the bush, where it's silent and you've got that to look at. And the whole place is covered with internet, including the bunkie and the two shops. That has been, in the past, it's been a little difficult, but we've had DSL here for quite a long time now, which is usable. But if you're really going to work, and there's going to be a bunch of people working, the Bell system will be available, so you have that option. The Rogers system will be available, so you have that option. And then you also have the SpaceX option, so you're going to be able to pick your speeds. The front door, I went over to, I was in Europe for a motorcycle trip. I went into a lodge. I opened the door and it was like, God, what is this thing? It's cold up there. You're high elevation in the Alps. And it had this thing with the button in the side that when it closed, it put a seal down under the door. And I thought, I got to talk to this guy. It was, I don't know, it's 3 inches thick? I think it weighs about 800 pounds. When we built that room, Fran wanted that sunroom, sad room thing. We call it the sad room. It's a smoking and drinking room. One of the things we wanted to do was have good ventilation in it. 16 or 20 windows that go into the wall. So you put your fingers in and you pull it down and the whole window goes into the wall, and there's a screen on the outside. There's little hooks that that they're flush mount, but then when you want to put them up, they're right flush. So you flip these little hooks and then you pull them up and then you can slide it back up into the wall. And they're pretty much full wall height, almost full wall height, except for the base. There's got probably 1.5 feet. There's in-floor heating in there also. So you fire up the little wood stove and turn on, once it gets warm, you flip on the in-floor, because the thing's got fairly substantial heat loss anyway. But they are dual pane windows. And what I like the best of it, personally, is I like being out there in a snowstorm. Because it can be just blowing like hell. Floor is really warm, like really warm. And the wood stove's on and you got snow coming through them. There's stainless steel pipe or rod insets in the maple butcher block top. So when you pull something out of the oven, just stick it right on the thing without burning the surface. You don't have to try to get to the sink or try to get to some granite. You can just plunk it down and you won't burn anything. And then there's a Sub-Zero double-sided fridge that's built like Fran just cleaned it, and it's like it's like that front door. Everything's like just solid. If you wanted to have separate areas to be able to entertain each other, then you can, we decided we'd have it so these doors close. There's 2 doors here going into the dining room, but then we couldn't get a pocket door in here because there's a concrete fireplace or stone fireplace in the way. So we decided we'd do this.
So by the time you close that and close those, this is isolated.
There's a cedar, all cedar wine cellar downstairs it's a cold area. In fact, that thing's actually plumbed for a wine chiller. If anybody was really crazy, they could put there's pipes that run from the mechanical system into that room where you could run a chiller box that would tie to the earth loop. And you could maintain that whatever temperature you wanted. If somebody wanted to have it, it doesn't matter to us that much, but I put it in there just in case we did it sometime in the future.
To find out more about all these fascinating home features and detailed information, please contact us at info@trilliumteam.ca or 705-935-1000. Thanks for watching.